Did you know Mercedes once blew $2 billion on a single car? This is what happened when Mercedes engineers got a blank check and zero adult supervision. Today we're counting down the most over-engineered Mercedes of the 1990s, tank-like legends with gadgets nobody asked for, price tags that made CEOs cry, and enough durability to embarrass half the cars on the road today. Number 6. Mercedes-Benz CLK GTR. Imagine walking into a Mercedes dealership in the late 90s looking for a comfy E-Class and instead being told, "We also have a 600 horsepower race car we barely made street legal. Are you interested?" Well, that's basically the CLK GTR, a car so absurdly over-engineered that calling it a road car is like calling a chainsaw a butter knife. And here's the kicker. Mercedes didn't build this thing because they wanted to show off their over-engineering expertise. No, they built it because racing rules forced them to. See, the FIA GT1 series said, if you want to race, you gotta sell 25 road-legal production vehicles. So, Mercedes and AMG got to work. The over-engineering started from day one. AMG and Mercedes cranked out the entire car in just 128 days. That's 4 months to design, test, and build what was supposed to be a championship-winning machine. Most of us can't even renovate a bathroom in 128 days. But somehow, Mercedes built a carbon fiber missile with a 6.0-liter V12 that made over 600 horsepower, naturally aspirated. And while the brakes betrayed them in the first FIA GT race, the extremely over-engineered engine didn't disappoint. That masterfully overbuilt, naturally aspirated V12 engine was so tough, it never once failed in a race. So much so, the CLK GTR went on to win 6 out of the 11 races of the 1997 FIA GT season. The road car versions? Oh, those were absurdly unbelievable as well. Mercedes had to make 28 of them to keep the FIA happy, so they handed billionaires what was basically a Le Mans car with license plates. The cockpit was cramped, visibility was non-existent, and comfort? Forget it. This wasn't a luxury car. It was a rolling loophole. But under the skin, it had all the same obsessive engineering. Carbon fiber monocoque, downforce for days, and an engine that didn't know the meaning of failure. And did we mention a top speed of 214 miles per hour? And because Mercedes used to rule the over-engineering game back then, the CLK GTR also ended up in the Guinness Book of World Records, not for speed, but for being the most expensive production car in the world, over $1.5 million in 1999. Number 5. Mercedes-Benz C-Class W202. It's 1993. You stroll into a Mercedes dealership thinking, all right, I'm not rich, but maybe I can afford the baby Benz. It's the entry-level one, so how fancy can it be? And then you sit in the W202 C-Class and immediately realize Mercedes has delivered an over-engineered masterpiece, even if it is their cheapest entry-level model. Built from 1993 to 2001, the W202 replaced the legendary 190 series, W201, a car so massively overbuilt that Mercedes-Benz spent $2 billion on the project. Mercedes knew expectations were sky high, so there was only one way to overcompensate. Any guesses? Yes, over-engineering. So how did they do it? Well, start with the interior. You'd think an entry-level Mercedes might use cheap materials and feel clumsy. Nope. Every button and switch felt like they were designed to survive the next 100 years. Twist a knob, and it clicked with the same authority as a bank vault door. Slam the door shut, and it didn't just close. It announced itself with that satisfying thunk. And then there was the otherworldly driving experience. At 70 miles per hour, the W202 was so quiet and smooth, it felt less like a compact sedan and more like a mobile spa day. Some even joked it was as comfortable as taking a bubble bath, minus the rubber duck. It was supposed to be the affordable Benz, but the ride comfort was closer to what you'd expect in the flagship models. But where the over-engineering really showed was under the hood. Mercedes introduced new engines for this car, like the M111 4-cylinder, which had the impossible job of replacing the legendary OM617 diesel. It wasn't fast, but it was practically bulletproof. And then there was the M112 V6, the first in Mercedes history, with clever 3-valve per cylinder and twin-spark technology. Many of them racked up 400 to 500k miles and just kept going, almost daring you to kill them. And that's the madness of the W202. It wasn't flashy, it wasn't exotic, but it was so ridiculously overbuilt that 2 decades later, you'll still spot them running errands, hauling kids, or pulling another shift as a taxi, because Mercedes engineers simply didn't know how to chill. Number 4. Mercedes-Benz SL R129. The R129 SL is basically when Mercedes used to say, "We have too much engineering budget, let's go nuts." Launched in 1989 and designed by the legendary Bruno Sacco, the R129 looked like a car drawn with a ruler, clean, sharp, and timeless. So much so, this masterpiece by Sacco won the prestigious Car Design Award in 1990 for its design perfection. But here's the thing. Under that simple, elegant body was some of the most absurdly over-engineered technology Mercedes had ever stuffed into a two-door. Inside, it was a peak 90s Mercedes. The huge solid seats weren't just comfy, they were orthopedic thrones with memory functions. Interestingly, the head restraints looked like they were floating as they were attached to the side. The use of materials inside? Leather, wood, and plastic so tough they seemed allergic to aging. The switches felt engineered for eternity. The kind of car where you could press a button 10,000 times and it would still click like new. Even the trunks were carpet-lined in colors like black, beige, or brown. And then there's the roof. In the 1990s, most convertibles made you fight with latches and canvas like you were pitching a tent. The SL? One button. You hit it, and a symphony of hydraulics, sensors, and motors worked together to fold the top perfectly into place. If that wasn't enough, Mercedes gave you a removable aluminum hardtop as standard, and if you were really feeling extra, you could order the panoramic glass roof. It was absurdly complex, but it worked so well that even today, when you see one operating, it feels like magic happening before your eyes. And of course, we can't ignore the engines. The entry-level straight sixes were smooth and durable, but then you had the M119 V8s, some of the toughest engines Mercedes ever made. And at the very top, the M120 V12, a 6.0-liter monster, also used in the Pagani Zonda, making nearly 400 horsepower with the smoothness of melted butter. Nobody asked for a V12 in a roadster, but Mercedes built it anyway because why not? The R129 was less of a car and more of a masterclass in unnecessary brilliance. Everything about it was designed to be more than you needed, more than you asked for. That's exactly why it's remembered today as one of the most gloriously over-engineered Mercedes of the 90s. Before we reveal the final 3, don't forget to hit the like button and comment below which Mercedes car from the 1990s you love the most. Number 3. Mercedes-Benz S-Class W126. When people talk about peak Mercedes-Benz engineering, they're usually thinking of this car, the W126 S-Class. Built from 1979 and all the way into the early 1990s, this wasn't just a flagship luxury sedan. It was from an era when Mercedes executives used to say, "Forget budgets, forget marketing. Let's just build the best car in the world and see how long it lasts." Now, to understand how different the W126 was, you have to remember the competition at the time. Most cars of the early 80s and even 90s were shaped like square refrigerators on wheels. The W126? It had a sleeker, smoother design and managed a drag coefficient of 0.36. What this meant was that the W126 sliced through the air so smoothly, you could sip coffee at 120 miles per hour and not spill a drop. That's over-engineering you could actually taste. And safety? Oh, Mercedes took safety so seriously it was almost comical. At the time, while other cars treated safety as a padded dashboard and maybe stronger seatbelts, the W126 S-Class was the first to introduce the driver's airbag in a production car. And they didn't stop there. ABS was standard, and seatbelts came with pre-tensioners that automatically tightened upon impact. Inside is where you really witnessed Mercedes' beautiful obsession with doing absolutely everything to an insane degree of perfectionism. Every switch, button, and seat adjustment didn't just work, it worked with the kind of precision that made you think, did they really need to put this much effort into a window switch? Truth is, you were surrounded by materials that still hold up today. Leather, wood, precision switches that felt like they'd last forever. And while most luxury cars at the time were happy with plush seats, Mercedes decided theirs should be orthopedic, heated, and supportive enough to keep you fresh after a long drive. But none of this would matter if the engines weren't over-engineered. Mercedes gave the W126 everything from dependable inline sixes to V8s, all built with that forever mindset. The star of the lineup was the 560 SEL's 5.6-liter V8, an engine so smooth and durable that many are still running today with nothing more than routine maintenance. Number 2. Mercedes-Benz E-Class W124. The Mercedes W124 is the kind of car that makes you wonder if the engineers were secretly preparing for the apocalypse. We mean, there's a famous video where a monster truck literally drives over a W124 wagon, crushes the roof flat, and you'd think that's the end of the story. Except no. The car fires right back up, the electronics still work, and it starts moving like it was a normal routine. What modern car could pull that off? Produced from 1984 to 1996, the W124 was Mercedes at their absolute peak of over-engineer everything just because we can. You can almost picture the boardroom back then. Some engineer standing up like, what if we design a suspension system so advanced it makes every other car look like it's riding on shopping cart wheels? And Mercedes actually said, do it. That's why the W124 got a 5-link independent rear suspension, which at the time was ridiculously complicated. Honestly, it wasn't necessary and it certainly wasn't cheap. But it made the car ride like a cloud at 100 miles per hour while still cornering flat like a sports sedan. It's the kind of setup other car makers didn't even bother copying until years later. And then there's the aerodynamics. The W124 looked classy and understated, but it featured aerodynamics way ahead of their time. Unlike the W126 S-Class, which had the already impressive drag coefficient of 0.36, the W124 over-engineered it further to achieve a drag coefficient of 0.30. To give you an idea of just how impressive this number is, a modern-day Porsche 992 only achieves a drag coefficient of 0.29. Translation? Better fuel economy and higher top speeds, without even trying. And then, of course, the engines need no introduction. The legendary inline sixes and diesels are the stuff of automotive folklore. The OM606 diesel is so ridiculously strong that people rip it out of these old cars and shove it into trucks, drift builds, even boats. No wonder a Norwegian taxi driver famously racked up over 2 million miles in his W124. This is why many people say Mercedes build quality peaked with the W124. And if you've ever been around one, you know why. Number 1. Mercedes-Benz S-Class W140. If there's one car that screams, too much engineering is never enough, it's the Mercedes-Benz S-Class W140. This thing was so over-engineered that it nearly bankrupted Mercedes, delayed its release, and even got the lead engineer fired. Imagine spending years perfecting a car only for your boss to say, yeah, nice work. Also, you're fired. That's how ridiculous this project was. The W140 was the last S-Class built in the golden era of Mercedes' never-ending search for perfection. For the W140, their mission was simple: build the most technologically advanced luxury car on the planet at any cost. And oh boy, did it cost. Daimler reportedly dropped close to $1 billion into development, drove prototypes nearly 1.8 million miles, and wired the thing with over 2 miles of electrical cabling. That's not car development, that's an aerospace-level obsession. So what did all that money buy? Outrageous features. It had soft-closed doors and trunk lids, double-glazed side windows for near-total cabin silence. So quiet inside you could probably hear your heartbeat. It had rain-sensing wipers and self-deploying parking guide poles before backup cameras were even a thought. The suspension? All new multi-link setups front and rear with adaptive dampers that made potholes feel like suggestions rather than craters. Everything, the engine, the air conditioning, even the transmission, was computer-controlled. In the early 90s, this was revolutionary stuff. Then there were the engines. Mercedes didn't stop at a straight 6 or a couple of V8s. No, they also dropped in a 6.0-liter V12 just to flex on BMW's 7 Series and to remind Lexus that Germany doesn't play nice. Dual overhead cams, 4 valves per cylinder. It was basically an aircraft engine with cup holders. But here's the kicker. The W140 wasn't just loaded with tech, it was big, like comically big. It was heavier and way more expensive than the W126 before it. Critics called it bloated, fans called it bulletproof. The owners called it the reason I'm broke but smiling. Between 1991 and 1998, Mercedes sold about 432,000 examples, including over 26,000 coupes. Yet despite those somewhat impressive numbers, the car became a turning point for Mercedes' approach moving forward. Lexus had just dropped the LS and undercut Mercedes on price, forcing the German automaker to rethink how much money it could keep burning on their over-engineering dreams. After the W140, Mercedes slowly started listening to accountants. And this is why enthusiasts today call it the last proper S-Class. Overbuilt, overcomplicated, over-budget, and absolutely glorious. We hope you enjoyed this video. Here's another one you won't want to miss. As always, thanks for watching.